You're listening to Mystic Lounge with Alan B. Smith. Rebroadcast on the Onyx Network. Thursdays at 11 p.m. Pacific. Fridays at 2 a.m. Eastern.
However you are and whenever you are, welcome, good souls, to Mystic Lounge. This is Alan B. Smith, your grateful host. Thank you so much for joining us live again. It's been too long since we've done a live podcast on Mystic Lounge. You know how much I love doing this. Thank you all for showing up in chat. Thank you, Genghis. It's great to see you, Janice. And all of you out there, if this is your first time listening, welcome to the Mystic Lounge family. I'm so grateful to have you here. I'm very grateful to have our guest tonight, PMH Atwater, and we'll be discussing her in-depth and decades of research and experience into near-death experiences and the role they play in our personal evolution as a species, and so much more. So I'm really excited to be here with you all tonight. And if you miss these live streams, you can always check them out on the Onyx Network at 2 a.m. Eastern on Friday nights or 11 p.m. Pacific time Thursdays. And just recently, I contributed an article to the Onyx magazine. So if you subscribe to the magazine, please go check that out. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. To put it briefly, I had a few things to say regarding the biased debunking of paranormal phenomena. So I think you'll enjoy that article. Please subscribe to the Mystic Lounge YouTube channel here. Just click the subscribe button, the notification button, so you don't miss any future podcasts. And if you listen to the audio version on the podcast, I would really appreciate if you can take the time, just give a brief review and rate it. All that really helps the podcast and the channel grow collectively together. All right. So our guest, Dr. PMH Atwater, LHD, is an international authority on near-death states and is the author of multiple books on the subject, including The Forever Angels, Near-Death Experiences in Childhood and Their Lifelong Impact, a manual for developing humans, Align Yourself with the Directive of Your Soul, and Future Memory, and the big book of near-death experiences. I can't forget that one. PMH is one of the original researchers in the field of near-death studies, having begun her work in 1978, and I am happy to have her here with us now. PMH, welcome.
Hello. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you. Yeah, we had a little bit of a tech issue leading up to this, but we made it through. We passed the test.
Oh yes, we're taking a deep sigh of relief here.
Right, exactly. So thank you so much for coming here. Your breadth of work is wide. Many people know you, but perhaps they don't know you about all of the topics that are tangential or directly related to near-death experiences that you've discussed over the years. So probably the best place to start is, what was your personal experience that brought you to the field of research for NDEs?
Yeah. The only reason I'm a near-death researcher is because I died, and I was told to do the work. I died 3 times in 1977. Once January 2, then January 4, then March 29. Later that year, I had 3 major relapses. So I can honestly say 1977 wasn't my year.
I can understand that. What exactly happened? How did you die? What was the frequency?
I was raped. Pregnancy. Things went wrong, obviously, that caused the various deaths. And in my 3rd near-death experience, I was told by what I call the voice like none other. I was told, and I quote, "Test revelation. You are to do the research. 1 book for each death." Book number 1 was not named. Books 2 and 3 were named. Book 2 is Future Memory. And if anyone wants to try that, it's not a book, it's a labyrinth. It is a real labyrinth. When you start reading the book, you enter the labyrinth, and if you stay on the path, it's like staying on the path of a labyrinth. It could go, in and out and in and out like a real labyrinth does. The purpose of the book is to bring your consciousness up to the next highest level possible for you at that time. So the book is a brain changer. A manual for developing humans is also out. And the purpose of that book is to help you be the individual that you are.
Is it the individual that you are, or the individual that you're meant to be?
Well, realize that about 1,000 years ago, or more or less, I don't know. The word for human, the word for human was hue, the sound of hue. The sound of hue was the sound of God. They believed that. So therefore, hue man, hue woman is God man, God woman. And in the near-death experience, we have the opportunity to really learn to be who we really are. And so the book has those steps. It's simple, it's easy, lots of illustrations, lots of thought form drawings that are in it. So I invite everybody to be who you are. We don't learn that in school. You don't learn to be who you are.
Well, that's interesting that you say that, because you're told, often we were told that, you hear that, but often I feel like it is like a trope, because it's, do as I say, not as I do, right? And the framework isn't always there. Yeah.
Look, you are a child of God. That's who you are. And so the book enables you to really do that and be that through talking, through thinking. All of those steps are in the book. They're easy and fun to do, including giving yourself an acupressure facelift. Yes.
That sounds good.
Things are in there.
But what was that voice that you heard? Because you just referenced God, right? The voice that you heard, where did that come from?
I call it the voice like none other.
The voice. Okay. And so does that mean God? Does that mean the unknown name?
Whatever you want it to mean. It's the voice like none other.
And what is that experience like for people who, a lot of us haven't had near-death experiences, so it would be interesting to know what was it like? What's that world like when you're there?
Well, everybody's different. For me, it was all there is. There wasn't anything else but where I was. And where I was so complete and so full and so wide and so incredible that I don't know how to explain it, really.
But you've been researching it for decades. Yeah. You have to have some idea of, like, okay, can you use like a metaphor? Like, is there's a sensation?
What I was researching was what's the people who went through it, what it was like for you.
Mm-hmm.
And what we learn is that we are co-creators with the Creator.
Okay.
That's who we are. We are co-creators with the Creator. And there are lots of after effects of the near-death experience. Not all of them are pleasant. Many of them are hellish. They're not all heavenly. So if you read the big book of near-death experiences, it's sort of like an encyclopedia of the entire field, what the various near-death experiences are, the after effects. The main after effects are changes in thought processing, changes in the nervous system, the digestive system.
Mm-hmm.
Um, of course, the big one is that changes in thought processing.
Well, that's the big one indeed. So consciousness, oftentimes when people have a paranormal experience or a psychedelic experience, a mystical experience, there's a shift in the consciousness, and that's a big part of what you have looked into. What what's the point of it? So okay, so one has this sadly a traumatic incident and they cross over. Why does it even exist in the first place that we were even able to have that experience? Is that experience in itself designed that way so that we can learn something, and or is it just by chance?
I think to answer that either way misleads us.
Mm,
It misleads us in the sense of what's possible. What's possible in our living and
mhm,
being. These experiences turn us around. Turn us around in the sense of certainly thought processing, in who we are as a human being, what we are as a human being. We come back most people, not everybody, most people um, come back realizing um, that we are here for a specific purpose, and that purpose is different with different people.
mhm.
Um,
Is
uh,
there also a collective purpose as well?
okay, in my research, I found 4 different types of experiences.
Hmm.
The first one I call the initial experience. It was something like a quick out of body experience. Um, maybe the living nothing, the darkness, maybe a great light. Um, and that's all there was to it. Maybe a voice that's talking to you, and that's all there was to it.
Mm,
Yet it changes people, especially children. Children have a lot of these. Um, the second kind I would define as um, either hellish or frightening, or something that is very difficult to handle or
mhm.
surprising to us. Um,
Are those in turn eventually perceived as a positive experience? Those darker experiences, do they serve
sometimes,
a
sometimes yes, sometimes no.
hmm,
It depends on the individual. In my research base, 1 out of 7 had an unpleasant
mhm.
or hellish experience. Um, um, of course, about about 48% had the more pleasant or heavenly experience.
Mm-hmm.
Only about maybe 10%, maybe 19% had what I call the transcendent experience. Those that had a transcendent experience seldom have ever had a past life review. These people, many of them were told all about history from beginning to end.
Mm-hmm.
Some were given specific jobs to do. But very few had that kind. Most had the pleasant or heavenly experience. Again, about 40% of the people had that kind.
Yeah, can you give us an example of what like the pleasant experience is?
Well, many would see past life, loved ones like moms and dads, grandmas and grandpas, people who had died and gone on before them. Many people will see animals. Many people see birds.
Mm-hmm.
Kids see a lot of birds, and I don't
That's
know
interesting.
why, but they
Yeah.
do. A lot of birds, but adults as well. But again, loved ones who have died and gone on before. Some say they saw God. Uh, those that claim, God or some higher being of some kind. To me, a near-death experience turns this around. I don't care what your belief system was. I don't care if you were religious or not religious. It turns you around in your thinking. It turns you around in your living. It turns you around in what you think of yourself and what you're able to do. And no, most people are not able to handle it at first. Some of them come back, so filled with love. But when you look at their family, somewhere between 70 to 80% of near-death experiencers are divorced within about 3 to 4 years afterward. Very soon.
Yeah.
Because they're not able to handle this. The family isn't able to handle this.
Yeah, not just the individual,
Let me give you an example from my
Sure.
own life. I have 3 children. My oldest daughter, after my experience, we were in the kitchen, and she pointed at me, with the pointer finger, says, "Well, Mom, you're nicer now than you were before. You're easier to handle. You're easier to be around." And put her hands on her hips and said, "But you're not Mom, and I want Mom back." It took her.
Wow, that's that. So it was that drastic of a
Yeah.
behavioral change.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. All 3 of my children.
Well, it's interesting. It's
much a very different person.
Yeah, these kind of psychic shifts occur for all kinds of different reasons. A friend who was in the closet as a gay man for a long time, married, had children. After he came out, his children, and of course led to a divorce and all this other stuff, but his children came up to him not too long afterwards and said, "We like you better now. You're so much nicer." because he wasn't putting up this tight facade, this weight around him, and that was crushing him. And I wonder, in your case, was there something, or in experiencers' cases, is there something that's crushing them, that's like oppressing them, bringing them down, that these experiences somehow release them from?
I don't think so with Natalie. That's my daughter's name. She just didn't like the way I was anymore. She just wanted her old mom back.
Interesting.
And now I was more open. I was more giving. I was busy doing other things with my life. And you're more intelligent, most of us, when you come back. And she wasn't careful. She didn't like that. She wanted the old version back. She didn't want the new version.
And what about you? Did you want the new version?
I was so different that it didn't matter. I enjoyed being different. But what filled me the most was my mission. And I started that in 1978. And I left Idaho. I mean, I'm an Idahoan. I'm a Western woman. I sold everything I had, quit a job. I had this big promotion, quit my job the very day of my big promotion. And in those days, I was given a title in a bank. And in those days, women didn't get titles in banks. And I turned it down, walked out, sold my home, everything I had. And I moved to Virginia. I've never heard of Virginia before. As far as I was concerned, the United States ended at Denver. And anything east of Denver had to be in Greece or some other country. It wasn't a part of the United States. So it was a real adventure for me to move to Virginia and be living and working in Northern Virginia and in Washington, D.C. And I loved being in Washington, D.C. I certainly got Potomac fever. And that's when I gave my first talk about my near-death experience. And it was in a police station. I haven't talked about this for anyone for ages. Alan, you're bringing this out in me. I gave my first talk in a police station. They had a separate room that they used for community affairs. Well, I'm a cop's kid. I was raised in a police station, and I used police detective techniques as my protocol in my particular research. And after this talk, a woman came up to me and with the stars in her eyes, and she said, "I want to be like you. I want to go through something like you did." And it just, whoa, it hit me like a brick, because you can get this through other methods and ways. You don't have to go through what I did. And
you told her that
I stopped right then. I stopped ever talking about my own experience right then, because I felt like I had betrayed what I was supposed to do. And so I found other people who helped me speak at colleges and universities and meeting people and getting out, and I did, and that's when my research began after that talk.
Wow. So
Because I was so determined. I'm going to do my work. I'm not going to be entertaining people with stories, and that's what I did.
Is there a difference between entertaining with stories and, because so many of us, I'm a recovering addict, and like so many other people who have had traumatic experiences or, psychological struggles, whatever, it is helpful to be able to relate to someone, to hear someone else that they've been through something similar, because it kind of opens the door of the heart a little bit and allows you to
It
take.
didn't me.
No?
It didn't me. I went just the opposite.
That's so interesting. Okay, so how do you contrast your mission with the experience, which I'm guessing you didn't want to share about at the beginning of the show tonight, now that I'm learning this? But so you don't want to talk about that. Can you explain why a little bit more?
Because I had a job to do.
Which was?
I was told test revelation by a voice I called the voice like none other. And that was my job. And that's what I was to do. It didn't matter about integrating.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't matter about talking to other people. What mattered to me was doing the research. That was the only thing that mattered.
So revealing the truth as you understood it. Finding information.
No, not revealing the truth. No. Going out and finding people who went through experiences like mine,
Mm-hmm.
or any kind of experience, a near-death experience, and finding out what they went through, what it was like in their families, what was it like on their job, and that's that's what I did. I was an investigator, literally, and I was a cop's kid, and I was investigating, and that's what I did. And do you know, doing that helped me tremendously in handling my own experience and being able to understand better what I went through, but by finding out what other people went through and how and why and how it affected other people. I became the consummate researcher, and that's what mattered.
So okay, that's interesting. So it wasn't the initial, death or trauma that was required to relate to other people. It was the experience of the near death experience itself. That was enough to for that was the point, to just share that part of the experience. And no,
for me, it was to do my job.
Okay.
To do my job. It really was.
Yeah.
I became the consummate researcher.
Right, but the relating of the story of the near-death experiences helps one to understand near-death experience, is what you were saying.
It helped me to help other people understand their experience better.
Exactly. Yep.
By what I found. And one of the things I'm sure that will entertain you to no end is, after I moved east, one of the jobs I found in the Virginia area was to I found a job with electronic computer kind of people, and my job was to fly all over the eastern and central part of the United States and help motels and hotels handle the new switchboards on telephone systems. That was my job.
Mm-hmm.
And so literally, wherever I went, I found near-death experiencers. Literally.
And how did you just
It's
talk
just
to people about
incredible.
it, or people opened up to you?
They would. Like for instance, in this one place, it was a hotel, and they were still building, and we were all in what was to be the office space, and suddenly um, the the ceiling started to come down, and we had to flee, and this water coming down from the ceiling, and this one woman said, "This is just like when I died." And I, perked up, and I said, "Just like when you died? Tell me about it." And she would tell me her story. And wherever I went, this happened. Like one
Mm.
time in Macon, Georgia, um, it was coffee break time with my job, so I walked over to a truck stop, and I was in this truck stop, sitting in the middle, and I was reading a paper. Um, can I sit in that place new, that open seat near you? And I thought for a minute, and I thought, okay. And I said, sure. So he sat down, he put his elbows on the table and leaned forward, and he said, I want to, first thing he said is, I still drink, and I still cuss, and I still chase women. But I want to tell you all about the time I died, and I want you to know all about it. So he describes this near-death experience.
That's astounding.
And
Like,
I'm just going, what? And that kind of thing happened to me hundreds and hundreds of times.
okay, so here that's what's really interesting, because oftentimes, I'm trying to think of this like, okay, I'm a skeptic, right? So one might say, oh, you're reading, like a mentalist would read micro expressions or behaviors and things like that. But there's no translation between human behavior microstructions to the specific topic of near death experience. That's pretty impressive. Yeah.
And seated himself at the table. And this happened again. It didn't matter where I was.
Mm-hmm.
Something like this would happen. And hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. And it was about, what was it, maybe 1981, 82, about 1982. Kenneth Ring, a psychologist, found out what I was doing by, well, someone else told him what I was doing. He tracked me down by phone. I was living there in Harrisonburg, Virginia. I had married by then. And he said, I found out about you. I want to come and talk. This weekend, all of us are going to meet at Raymond Moody's house. I want to talk to you. Well, Raymond Moody, never heard of the man. Never heard of the book Life After Life. But, Kenneth Ring came, and he stayed with Terry and I overnight. And he said, he said, you know more about the near-death experience than anybody else. You're way ahead of all of the other researchers. You've got to come up to Storrs, Connecticut, and meet the rest of us. And I said, what? Yeah. There are other people doing this? He says, yes. And so I did. I went up there. The International Association of Near-Death Studies, they were only in existence maybe 3 months. I walk in the door in Storrs, Connecticut. I went through all of their archives, and I decided I would test what they found against what I found. Mm-hmm. And I drew up this particular questionnaire, sent it out, and found out that their people answered the questions the same way my people did, even though I knew better with what some of the people were telling me. They were telling me love, 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 unconditional love. They could go on and on and on. When I knew in their families, they were having all kinds of problems. There was divorce. All kinds of things were going on. And I said, wait a minute here. What is going on with these kinds of experiences? What is really happening here? And that's when I really delved in deeper. When we're talking about unconditional love, what we're talking about is a feeling or a sense that is so incredibly great that every woman you see is your mother, your daughter, your aunt, and your sister. Every man you see is your brother, your father, your husband, your son. It's like you can't tell the difference. You can't tell the difference because we're all part of that same incredible family. And by searching and looking deeper, I began to open up to what the after effects really are. And those after effects, yes, you become more loving. Indeed, you do. But you become more open to a world that isn't the same as the world you once knew. So, what I recommend certainly is a manual for developing humans, because it helps you to learn how to speak, to learn how to think, to learn how to act.
And what do you mean by learn how to speak?
How do I say that to you? When I speak to people, I do it in a way that is open to their response and my response. I don't judge. I just take them as they are. And we go from there.
That's how we roll on Mystic Lounge for sure. Because that's, like you said, being open and love seem to me to go hand in hand. Would you agree with that, or?
Love, yes, goes hand in hand with the experience, but it's more than that, and I don't know how to put that into words on your show because I'm not prepared to put that into words on your show.
That's all right. We have
Um,
everyone listening. Also, if you want to check out PMH's books, and she's been referencing quite a lot to A Manual for Developing Humans tonight, you can go to her website, which is pmhatwater.com.
These kind of experiences, near-death experiences, and really intense spiritual experiences
Mhm.
help you to realize that this world is so much bigger than you thought, and that your place in it is so much is so much more important than you ever thought,
Mm-hmm.
and that everything you say goes out and has a life of its own, and that everything you do matters, and um that in saying that, it's not a matter of judgment, but a matter of realizing who and what we are. It's like, for instance, in my book, A Manual for Developing Humans, uh, um, the word hue, maybe 1,000 years ago, I don't know how many years ago, hue was the sound of God. So human was God, man, God, woman. That was what it was. A human was a God man. A woman was a God woman. So that took that realization and brought it to another level.
And once you experience that and you get to that level, not just you but other near-death experiencers, what happens after that? How does that manifest? As you go through life, do you kind of have this?
Easier.
It got easier. Okay.
It's a lot easier.
Hmm.
Um, because I could allow people to talk and talk, do whatever they want, and then my response would be based on what mattered, rather than my response.
Mm-hmm.
It was a response that was based on what mattered.
Rather than responding to one's own self, one's own kind of mental processes, you're listening closer to what's more meaningful coming to you. You're like, are you more attuned to that?
I'm in tune with whoever is in front of me, whoever I'm dealing with, and I'm hearing them through that joy of knowing there's another God being in front of me. And it doesn't matter if they're angry or if I'm undergoing some sense of anger.
Mm-hmm.
That anger doesn't go anywhere on my part. What I'm responding to is what they're delivering. And my response then is, where is this coming from? What is it you are really saying? What do you want me to say? It's like this. One woman a couple of days ago was going on and on and on about how miserable she was.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to her, look at what you're saying to me. Let's take another look at what you're saying to me. You're asking for some help here. Let's take a look at what you just said. And in doing so, let's play with it.
And she did?
Yes. And I made some recommendations. Because she went on and on and on about how lonely she was. I said, well, why don't you just get this little book or a little magazine? It's a spiritual guide to better living. Won't cost you much money. Why don't you just buy that and read it every morning? And she never thought of that. And she said, yes, I can do that. I can have a spiritual upliftment every morning. I said, yeah, give it a try.
You know,
And
actually,
we know about our business.
that's awesome, and I'm glad that you brought that up, because I used to do that more often. I used to have something that I would read in the morning, like a spiritual, saying or short passage or something like that. I have done that in a long time.
Exercise,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it takes.
Yeah.
Or if you're
Yeah.
mad at your husband, make a wonderful, wonderful meal.
Mm-hmm.
A gorgeous meal.
Yeah. Well,
And fill it with love.
Yeah, I think we can all relate to stuff like that. I mean, for me, I'll beat myself up because if I go to the gym in the morning, I feel great. I feel relatively great, right, for the rest of the day. If I don't, then I'm whining about the fact that I didn't go, and that's like, what am I? That doesn't help anyone. It's really.
Hey, anytime you're in a tizzy,
Mm-hmm.
Stop right there. Put your hands down to your side. Stand up straight. Swallow. Swallow again. Swallow a third time. That gives the synapse in the brain time enough to clear.
Mm-hmm.
Then take a step. Then have a thought.
That's smart. Yeah, it's true. It's otherwise the rattling keeps going, right? It once it gets started.
After a meal, I always wash my dishes. Never a dishwasher. Wouldn't have one in my house. Always, I do my dishes myself, and I play with the bubbles. I love playing with bubbles. And I do it.
Well, you know
But
what? And it's funny. Right. It's how you can look at certain things. I love water. I like to be in water. I like to be around water. So now if maybe I'll start approaching dishes like it's a meditation and uh, yeah. So we only have a few minutes left.
What the problem is?
Yeah.
Be in your body. Recenter. And then move forward. But always be in your body and recenter.
Mm-hmm.
Always.
Yes. Yeah. Recentering and grounding, and there's different ways to do it. But I think that is always the most challenging, is to catch yourself in the moment when you really need to do. Because there's times where you can meditate, you set time aside. But when you're in the moment of just living, we also have to learn how to pause in
We
those
learn how
moments
to
and
stop.
stop. Yeah. And that's the
Not
most challenging.
pause, stopping.
Mm.
And
Interesting.
just, stop. Breathe. Always swallow, swallow, swallow. If you do that 3 times, standing straight with your, you got your head looking straight ahead,
Mm-hmm.
or you can have your eyes closed, doesn't matter. Swallow, swallow, swallow. That gives the synapse in the brain time to recenter.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can think, then you can speak.
PMH, we only have a few minutes left. Looking at the past studies that have been done on near-death experiences, do you think it's enough scientifically? Do we need to do more? Do we need to do better,
Yeah.
or does it matter?
Yes.
Okay.
Read the Forever Angels. You absolutely must read that book to understand what children go through, because they're not like adults, especially from birth to the age of 5.
Mm-hmm.
In my research, most children can remember their birth. They can. They have full memory of their birth. 1/3 can remember being in the womb. So don't hand me this stuff about pregnancy and all of this kind of stuff. 1/3 of the kids can remember being in their mother's womb.
And what age group?
Birth to the age of 5.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's incredible what we are capable of and what we know. And then, yes. March 26th, not March, May 26th. My 19th book comes out. It is a memoir autobiography. Hey, I'm a researcher. It took me 5 years to write this book, 5 different versions, lots of tears, but I did it. It's called Edge Walker: the many lives and deaths of PMH Atwater. Edge Walker. You get it from Amazon?
I'm looking. Yeah.
And I'm saying to everybody, get my free monthly newsletter, from my website, www.pmhatwater.com. PMH.com. That's all it is. PMH.atwater.com. Get on my newsletter, then get over to get on my website, then get over to newsletter. There's an archive, so you can look through it and see. You can sign up for the newsletter. It's free. I call it for the curious. And if you're not curious, you don't want my newsletter.
And we're curious.
And
PMH, we're at the very end. If you can leave us with one thought, what would it be?
Always there is life.
I like it. And the last question of the evening, are dragons real?
They are as real as we want them to be.
All right. So we'll leave it at that. PMH, thank you so much again for joining tonight.
Thank you.
All right. And thank you all for joining on Mystic Lounge on the youtube.com Mystic Lounge channel. If you are a fan of this podcast and want to check out the video, come on over here to the YouTube channel. Please subscribe, comment down below, like, and click the notification bell. And if you're a podcast listener, as always, please rate, review, and share. Thank you all so very much. Until next time, peace and love, and live in the mystery.